Hey babes, welcome to episode 7 of Marissa Unfiltered, a podcast with me, Marissa. That's right, it's another episode of the podcast nobody asked for, but hopefully everyone loves. How's it hanging, loves? I didn't record last week and I'm sorry about that. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry because I'm trying to be less of a people pleaser. And the reason why I didn't record last week was because depression. Woohoo! Don't we love depression? Basically, I had the notes and everything ready to go. Because I wrote this like a week earlier than it was supposed to go up. So and it was like really good. I was really happy with everything. But like I wasn't having a good week. Nothing actually happened. It's just sometimes depression gets the best of you and you don't want to do anything, including things that bring you joy. So that's basically what happened. And yeah, I just didn't want to do anything. I kept hoping that it would pass and that I would kind of just get back to like a more upbeat version of myself, but it just didn't happen. So I thought, you know what, let me not push it and let me not like force myself to do this, because it's just going to turn into something that I hate, and I'm not going to be happy with the quality of what I've produced anyway. So let me just not do it. Let me take a week off. And I watched movies. I watched a couple of movies. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy last week, and I have a lot of thoughts. I don't know if I want to share them. Let's see. We'll talk about the news, and then I'll talk about whether or not about my thoughts about Guardians of the Galaxy. This week I'm feeling much better, not 100%, but I'm feeling like good enough to actually do things. So let's go, baby, let's go. Let's get into some news, shall we? The first thing I want to talk about actually is Jamie Foxx. Over the past couple of weeks, bearing in mind, okay, before I go into anything that I'm gonna talk about that is like news related, it was written 2 weeks ago, so I'm very sorry. But anyways, yeah, Jamie Foxx, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, it was in the news that he basically like had a medical emergency. There wasn't a lot of information about like what exactly was going on. Yeah, and again, like I mentioned when I was talking about TMZ, we as like human beings who don't know these famous people, we are not entitled to anything to do with their lives. If they want to share it, they can share it. If not, then we shouldn't be trying to figure out what's going on in their lives. So it was reported that he was ill, and then there wasn't really much in the way of updates, but the way some of these reputable journalistic platforms, I say that sarcastically, the way that they like reported on it, it's like, oh my gosh, he's on his deathbed, like whatever. And God forbid, you know. I would say I'm a fan of Jamie Foxx in the way that I'm a fan of, you know, any other person. I don't I don't really have parasocial relationships with celebrities, but I'm a fan of Jamie Foxx, and so, you know, if something were to happen, it would be sad. So it was like, you know, worrying, and then nothing happened for a couple of weeks, and then last week his daughter came out and said on Instagram, she had to come out and say that he was okay. So she made a post, and she was like, my dad's been out of the hospital for weeks recuperating. Because people were making it seem like he was like literally he had one foot in the grave. And so they kind of forced this situation where his family had to say something. And I really hate that because a lot of people do this. I've seen this. I frequent YouTube from time to time. And I've seen people do these things where they create these elaborate rumors about people, and the only way for someone to dispel the rumor, or they just create accusations, and the only way for people to actually dispel the rumor or the accusation is to reveal more about themselves. And so these scummy blogs and these scummy accounts with just random faceless people who have all kinds of agendas for why they're doing what they're doing, they get away with it because now not only have you forced this celebrity to like give you some attention in order to refute what you're saying, but you've also now put them in a situation where they've had to reveal even more, expose themselves even more in order to correct what's going on. And I think that more people need to be sued. That is, I think that's my takeaway. Like, sue more people so that they are more hesitant to just like spew all kinds of bullshit. That's it. And again, the Jamie Foxx thing, and the other reason why I wanted to bring it up is that it kind of caused a lot of people to think critically about these. There are so many like tabloidy blogs on Twitter and Instagram, like the Shade Room. There's all these like rap accounts, these different accounts that are like just nameless, faceless people. You have no idea who's behind it, but they constantly share all of this stuff that is just like gossipy, but it's people's real lives that they're making, they're using for cannon fodder. And the same thing happened when the Tory Lanez trial was happening. All these blogs are like claiming all of these things and presenting it as if it's a fact. But then when you look behind the people responsible for them, when you can find out who's responsible, they're like deeply misogynistic, or they hate a certain group of people. And so they present certain information as if it's factual information, but really what they're doing is just like feeding their agenda. And like, we need internet literacy. Like, I really think we need not just internet literacy, we need media literacy, because too many people just take what's on the internet as face value without doing their own research and looking into exactly why certain people are saying what they're saying. So yeah, that just really bugged me, and I wanted to talk about it. The next thing I wanted to talk about was The Little Mermaid. It premiered 2 weeks ago now. In my notes it says last week, but it's 2 weeks ago now, I think. And I just love all the pictures. I wanted to talk about it because I just think Chloe Bailey is so like beautiful, and she seems like a princess. And not me laughing at my notes, honey. Yeah, she looked ethereal in that metallic dress. Oh my gosh, I want that dress. I can't pull it off because I don't think I'm as tall as she is. But that dress is like, mwah. It's a mini dress. Oh my gosh, I would fuck up a mini metallic dress. Like, the thing is with Little Mermaid, moving on from the dress, I'm actually not even a big fan of musicals, and I'm also not really a Disney princess girly. Like, the Disney fairy tales, I did not grow up watching them religiously, so I don't have that same feeling that a lot of Disney fans do, a lot of Disney adults, that spend thousands upon thousands to go to Disney. I actually have never been to Disney World, Disneyland, any of it, and I don't really want to go, but I do like some of their movies, and I want to give this one a go. I actually haven't even seen the original Little Mermaid, so maybe I should watch that one first. Yeah, so okay, so the take for example the one with the lions. The Lion King, the one with the lions. I saw that when I was like in my early 20s, and now I'm really aging myself. But yeah, like it wasn't that long ago that I saw The Lion King. I think I saw The Princess and the Frog around the same time. That one was nice. I liked all the cooking scenes. Yeah, I'm just not a Disney princess girly. Like it's never been my thing, but I love the pictures of all the little girls dressed up in their little like mermaid outfits, and just like they all look so excited and just living their best lives. And there's nothing that I love more than seeing children just be very happy and just, you know, just enjoying their lives. So yeah, and there's this woman, I saw some clips on Twitter of the red carpet for Little Mermaid. There was this woman who was like a big fan of the original, and she had her daughter, and they're dressed in like matchy outfits. It was just so adorable. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a watch when it's premiered for wide release, or when it comes out for wide release, which I think is the 26th of May, which is when this should be posted. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I mentioned earlier that I saw Guardians of the Galaxy recently, and it was a good movie. I'm not going to give any spoilers. But there were parts that made me cry, like just like sob, and I was like, oh. And then I had to remind myself that it's a fucking CGI raccoon. But yeah, there were parts that made me cry. There were some parts that I was like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? There were some parts that looked really silly and really stupid. And then I had to remind myself that in the first movie, they saved the universe, the galaxy, by doing a dance off. So stupid and silly is kind of their brand. Yeah, so the humor was still there. Like I laughed at a lot of what was going on. Adam Warlock, who is played by, what's that guy's name? Why am I drawing a blank? I'm gonna have to look. But yeah, the guy who was in We're the Millers and that one Black Mirror show, the interactive one that I just did not care for. What is his name? Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his? It's gonna bug me. I'm so bad at names. His name is Will Poulter. He was also in the Maze Runner series. Yeah, he was a nice addition as well. And I actually don't know much about Adam Warlock from the comics, so I can't really give anything about what he's supposed to be like, whether it was like a accurate adaptation or whatever. But Marvel never really follows the comics that closely, so whatever. But I think my favorite character remains to be like, even from the first movie, Drax was my favorite character because of just how his deadpan delivery, just saying the most outrageous things. I wish I could remain deadpan. I can't really do it for that long because I just end up laughing at myself or the situation. But Drax, the one thing that I will say is, number one, why does Drax hate Mantis so much? And number two, I feel like they were like Okay, I even forgot about this. The F word. The F word. What the fuck is wrong with me? I've been on the internet for too long. But they say, I can't remember where they say fuck, but it's basically they talked about, there was like news articles about how Guardians of the Galaxy is the first Marvel movie to use the F word. And when you see the context that they use it in, it was so pointless and so stupid. It was like they literally did not need to use the word in that place, in my opinion. But they were all like incredibly mean to each other, like way more mean than in any other previous iterations or any previous movies that they all appeared in together. And I get it, like they've been through so much, but it just felt like borderline hostile, and that was a bit much for me, to be honest. But overall, I did enjoy the movie. I think I want to watch it again when it comes out on Disney Plus, just so I can pause and go back and whatnot. But it was good. I also watched Dungeons and Dragons, and that was so much fun. It was just, I'm not familiar with any of the lore. I'm not a nerd. Thank you very much. Even though I'm wearing glasses right now, and that's all it takes to be a nerd, apparently. Chris Pine was really good in the movie. His comedic timing and everyone else's was really good. The one guy from Bridgerton, I haven't really seen him in much, and I've never seen Bridgerton, but I've seen fan cams on Twitter, so I guess you can say that I've seen Bridgerton. But yeah, he was also good in the movie. My only criticism is, why wasn't he in more of it? Because he basically like comes in. Skip ahead if you don't want to hear spoilers, but he just comes in out of nowhere and like gets them through this really difficult bit that they definitely could have gotten through on their own. And then he just like pisses off until, was it even in the end? I don't think so. I can't remember, but it's like 3 hours long. And I watched it really late at night, but it was really fun. I definitely recommend Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah, that's another one that I watch again, like on a Saturday night. I don't want to do much of anything. Order a takeaway, order a cheeky Chinese, and watch the movie. Yeah. By the way, a couple of weeks ago, the Chinese food debate was going around on Twitter, and ever since then I've been craving Chinese food. But also a lot of people have been talking about how British people say Chinese food, like we say, oh, I'm gonna order a Chinese, instead of saying I'm gonna order Chinese food. And a lot of people are really upset about that. And it's the one time where I'm like, am I too British? Because I don't see a problem with the way that we say it. Like, we're not saying it to be racist. But anyways, I've muttered on enough. So let's get into the main topic. Let's talk about some sperm, shall we? The way that I transition things is a problem. How can I do? Anyways, right. As you can tell by the title, and I actually haven't decided on what the title is going to be, because I have a few different ways that I want to do this, a few different names for the title, but we're gonna talk about sperm donors. And I want to apologize in advance, because I think this is the most disgusting episode I've done to date. It's the most disgusting things that I'm going to talk about. Even when I was writing it, I had to take a couple of breaks because I'm like, ugh, this is just, ugh. It's just, I've never written the word sperm as many times as I've done here. Actually, let me see if I can see how many times it's been written here. Is it going to tell me how many times? No, it's not. I'm sure there's another way to do this, but whatever. But I've written it way too many times, in my personal opinion. But yeah, I just want to apologize in advance because this one's going to be a little bit gross. Trigger warning, at some point I'm going to mention sexual assault. There is a part of it where I talk about one woman's experience. I'm gonna try and give another warning like right before I do that again. And just in general, this one's just like, ugh. So don't listen to this one out loud. I feel very disgusting even talking about this out loud. But let's go. We're talking about the case of the serial sperm sellers. There are men on the internet who go around dishing out their sperm like it's, I don't know, like fucking, they're sowing their wild oats, okay? And a lot of people want them to stop. So let's go. This all started when I was minding my business on a lovely Monday afternoon. The sun was out, my buns were out, it was lovely. I saw a story about a man who fathered over 500 children around the world. I don't remember, I was looking at something else and then that article came up as a suggestion and I was like, what? So I googled him and then I saw a Vice article about a man who was on a world tour, his own words, giving his sperm out everywhere that he stopped. So these are two separate people, by the way, not one person. So there's one who fathered over 500 children and he's a fucking menace, let me tell you. And then there's the other one who's on the world tour, and there's a few others that I'll mention as well. So morbid curiosity got the better of me and I just had to know more. I had to look into this and see what the fuck was going on. And as I dived further into these stories, I found out that there are men out there who either through legitimate sperm donations, like at a clinic or something, or just by sleeping with scores of women, they have fathered like hundreds, some of them, of children, and sometimes in multiple countries around the world. There are so many of them, I can spend all day talking about it. But today I'm going to focus on 2 or 3 cases because the deeper you get, the more therapy you'll need. Before we get into talking about these wayward individuals, it's important to mention that sperm and even egg donations offer parents who struggle with infertility or the inability to have children the ability to become parents. I'm not knocking legitimate sperm donations. Sperm banks and fertility clinics are heavily regulated, and they do this to stop bad actors and people with bad intentions taking advantage of vulnerable and desperate individuals. I also know that there are bad actors in fertility clinics and sperm banks too. There's this case in America of a doctor at a fertility clinic who basically replaced his the donor sperm with his own. So whenever a woman or a couple would come in and they've chosen who they want to be the sperm donor in whatever the case is, the doctor would then go in and replace their chosen sperm with his own. And I think there's a documentary about it on Netflix. And like, so he was doing this against the knowledge and wishes of his patients, and he ended up fathering a bunch of kids across the country. And some of them actually tried to sue him. I think they tried to get like legal recourse. And I may do that as like a whole separate thing, that I look into someone like that. So I didn't really dive too deeply here, but I do know that people like this exist. And it's not the only case. While I was looking at this specific topic that I'm talking about today, I found out about a doctor at a fertility clinic in Rotterdam who replaced donor sperm with his own, and he fathered 90 children. And like, along with the breach of trust, that is just like a massive violation. So when I'm talking about, you know, all of this, please bear in mind that I do know about, you know, doctors who do the same thing. They're not supposed to do that, obviously. Lastly, this is not an argument for adoption. It's not an argument for or against adoption. This is something that I became curious about and wanted to talk about. We're not here to argue whether people should keep having kids when there's loads of kids up for adoption around the world. That's not what I'm here to debate. There is actually a story about adoption that I want to talk about, surrounding the rehoming of adopted kids, but that's a whole different kettle of fish entirely. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, that little disclaimer, along with the fact that this is purely for entertainment and I'm not like a legal professional or anything like that. So let's get into it. The first wayward dickhead that I want to talk about, his name is Jonathan Jacob Meyer, and he's a 41-year-old from the Netherlands. I'm so sorry to anyone who listens to me in the Netherlands. Like, I think this is like the second or third time that I'm talking about criminals in your country. I apologize. So he's from The Hague, or Hague specifically. I don't know if The Hague is just referring to the court. I don't know. But he's from Hague, which is interesting because I feel like he's a fucking war criminal, and I will not be elaborating further. Although I will be elaborating on some of the things that he's done, and you can make up your own mind on whether or not he should be behind bars or not. When I first started writing this back in March, he was being sued by Donorkind Foundation, an organization in the Netherlands that connects and offers support to adult donor children. They also do a lot of advocacy work for donor children and offer them a place for mutual support. Regarding the lawsuit, I'll reveal the outcome in a bit, but first, let's talk about Jolly Jonathan. He's allegedly a musician and he has a YouTube channel. I say allegedly because I didn't really see much evidence. I don't remember seeing much evidence of this on his YouTube channel, and it's very like up in the air whether or not that's like actually what I don't know. I couldn't find much on that. But he does have a YouTube channel where he talks about his raw diet. So basically like eating raw meat and all of that weird stuff. Out of curiosity and in the interest of good storytelling, I decided to check it out. I didn't go as far as, actually, I was going to say I didn't go as far as watching any of the videos, but I actually did end up watching a couple of them. He basically talks a lot about like religion in some of them. I believe he has Christian beliefs. He talked a lot about God, and basically he seems like a very like conservative ideals type person, like big family, the man is the head and all of that kind of stuff. And then in others, he's talking about the healing power of crystals. And there's some of them where he's eating. There's this one that I watch where he's just sitting like in the woods and he's eating a raw kidney. And I was like, and he's just like chatting away. I was like, what is this? So in the video titled Eating Raw Kidney, by the way, if you want to check his YouTube channel out, it's literally his full name, Jonathan Jacob Meyer. So you can search that in your own free time if you want to. So in the video titled Eating Raw Kidney, he just sits there and eats a raw goat's kidney. He uses the dullest looking Swiss Army knife that I've ever seen in my entire life. It looks like he didn't even sanitize the knife. And yeah, it just wasn't very impressive. He's just sitting there in the woods chatting shit about like the benefits of raw kidney. And then at one point it seems like he was really struggling with chewing. I'm like, what is anybody gaining from any of this? He has another video where he's eating raw pork. And I remember in the last episode I mentioned that Nasubi also ate raw pork. So I finally Googled to see if there's actually, like, if raw pork actually causes an infection, because I'm really under the impression that it does. So I wanted to see. And it turns out that it's quite rare nowadays. But back in the day, or I guess in some maybe like poorer countries, it's possible to get a parasite called trichonellosis from undercooked meats, including pork. I think it's kind of like a tapeworm kind of thing, but it's really rare nowadays. But you still won't catch me eating raw pork. I don't even eat cooked pork, so there. The most interesting video, and I'm using that term very loosely. This guy is really fucking boring. There's a video where he's addressing teenagers for some reason. He's standing in front of a windmill, which is very Dutch of him. I love that for him. And his main message basically is, don't prioritize friends over family because your family is more important. It's so bizarre because like in the video at one point he stops talking and he's just showing videos of like people like riding a bike along a canal, and I'm like, what is this? Are you on the tourism board for the Netherlands? Like, what's going on here? But his whole message around like prioritizing family over friends is really fucking rich coming from him, since he's basically fathered so many children, like the equivalent of a bustling small town. But at the same time, he's talking about building a tribe and like all of this weird stuff that his children will never have the ability to do because there's so many of them. Anyways, I clicked off of his channel because it's so boring. I cannot overstate how boring this guy's channel is. But if you want to check it out, you can do so. It's his full name. I'm not going to link it because I don't really care. But back to his shenanigans. He was blacklisted in 2017 after the Dutch Society of Obstetrics and Gynecology warned that he had fathered 102 children via 10 different clinics in the Netherlands. And that's a big no-no. You're not supposed to have that many kids. The max number of kids a sperm donor is allowed to father in the Netherlands is 25, for a host of different reasons. And I'll go into the reasons why all of these men are bad, basically. I'll go into that later on. Imagine my surprise when I learned that the US has no limit on how many kids a donor can have. So a man in the US could go around and donate to every single fertility clinic in the US, and there's no law stopping him from doing that. And there's no law from in place that says you can only father 10 children in, this one town. So he can have a town full of kids. That's just really weird to me. It's believed that Jonathan, Jolly Johnny, was able to get away with this by lying and misrepresenting the number of donations he made and the number of children he'd fathered. I guess there's no way to really check like the records in sperm banks to see how many deposits people have made at other clinics. I'm not really sure. In 2018, a woman called Eva, who is one of the recipients of his donation, became aware of his actions and was sickened with the reality of the situation, saying that if she knew he had that many children, she never would have chosen him as her donor. She's concerned about the repercussions it has for her child, who now, at this point, has over 500 half-siblings around the world. Eva also said, "If I think about the consequences this could have for my child, I'm sick to my stomach. Many mothers have told him he needs to stop, but nothing helps. So going to court is the only option I have to protect my child." And she's included in the lawsuit that I mentioned earlier as well. And this man, he's a serious problem because people are telling him, stop, and he's not listening. The chair of Donakin Foundation, the people who were suing him, said, "We are taking action against this man because the national government is doing nothing to help. He has a global reach via the internet and he does business with large international sperm banks." So Jolly Johnny basically said he's fathered enough Dutch babies, he's going international. What? He didn't say that. I just made that up. But basically that's what he's doing. He's like, I've fathered enough Dutch babies. I'm going to go international, baby. And he's just like pissed off to other countries. And they've allowed this to happen. But just again, he didn't say that. That's me assuming that's what he said. It's important to note that this is a business. Although it's called a sperm donation, it's something that these people get paid for. The sperm banks actually pay them for their deposits. And this man has been allowed to make donations at 11 clinics in the Netherlands and God knows how many countries around the world. So I looked it up and I found this one Dutch sperm bank where they advertise that you can be paid around €500 per deposit. I actually thought it would be more than that, but apparently it isn't. There's some that are like way less than that, but there's an incentive for these men doing this. They're not just doing this because they are, saints and they want to help those people around the world who don't have the ability to have kids. That's not why they're doing this. It may have been the case in the beginning for some of them, but at this point, it's a problem. As part of the lawsuit, Donakin's lawyer stated that this behavior is dangerous for the mental well-being and health of donor children. By preferring his reproductive urge, the donor is acting unlawfully. In addition, he violates the agreements with the clinics and with prospective parents. So many alliterations that are just killing me. Oh my gosh. Oh, I feel like I need to say that again. As part of the lawsuit, Donakin's lawyer stated that this behavior is dangerous for the mental well-being and health of donor children. By preferring his reproductive urge, the donor is acting unlawfully. In addition, he violates the agreements with the clinics and with the prospective parents because they trusted his promise that he would father a maximum of 25 children. So basically, when you donate your organic material in the Netherlands, you have to sign an agreement that says you're only going to do this to a maximum of 25 children. Only 25 children are going to be born out of your sperm donation. And he has gone above and beyond that. And that's why it's unlawful, and that's why they're suing him. And also, he's a fucking liar. And he's a menace because he's also approached prospective parents looking for home insemination online and on social media. And he's shown no signs of changing his behavior, even though this lawsuit is taking place. And remember, he was barred in 2017 by the Dutch authorities. And now we're in 2023 and he's shown no signs of changing. And for that, I feel like he deserves to be in jail. Take him to The Hague. He's a war criminal. I cannot stress this enough. I'm not a psychologist, but I'd also question his own mental health. I feel like this is not something someone with a balanced self-image and worldview does. If people are telling you to stop what you're doing because you're hurting people, including your own biological children that you've already fathered and there is no way that this man can possibly have a relationship with all of these children if he chooses to do so. If they choose to reach out to him, there is no way. There's so many of them. And with that in mind, his mental health has to be in a really interesting place, because who does this? What sane person does this? And he's allegedly been accused of using fake names and lying, and they know that he's been lying to sperm banks. So I question his mental health as well. Clearly there's something missing in your life and you need to seek help if that's what you're doing. And I'm sorry, but I need to rant for a second, as if I haven't already been ranting. He's not even anything special to look at. And I hate to even mention this because, beauty is in the eye of the beholder and whatever. But this man he's boring. First of all, he is so boring. There's no charisma there at all. Number two, he just is very mediocre to look at. And that's just me being very generous. And I assume, based on the fact that there wasn't that much that I can find about his musician endeavors, that he's a very mediocre musician as well. And he's just fucking around on YouTube, making weird vlogs where he's eating raw meat and standing in front of windmills. And he thinks that he is the person that should be sharing his wild oats around the world to help women. Surely there's better people out there. Surely Jason Momoa should be if Jason Momoa wanted to do this, I'd be like, you know what, dude? Do what you're doing. Do what you're doing. I'm here for it. But no, it's this weird guy who has an obsession with windmills. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Who looked at this guy and said, yeah, I want him to impregnate me. I want that guy. The egos on these men are ginormous. Anyways, before I just boil over laughing, back to the lawsuit. And I'm so sorry about the way I say lawsuit. For some reason, I can't really say it properly, but back to the lawsuit. The people suing him didn't even want money from him. They literally just wanted him to stop donating his sperm. And they wanted the sperm banks to stop using his sperm unless it was for people who he had already donated to, who already have a child by him and wanted their child to have a biological sibling. That's basically it. They said, stop what you're doing. We don't even want your money. It doesn't look like you have that much to begin with. Just stop. It's enough. It's enough. That's what they said. They were also worried about the increased risk of incest due to him having so many kids. They could meet and not even know that they're related. and they're concerned about the psychological impact that it could have on the current kids and their families by knowing they have all of these siblings out there, but it being literally impossible to have a relationship with all of them. Can you imagine that group chat with you and you and 499 of your siblings? I would die. I would die. In the beginning, and I'm sorry for making light of this, it's so absurd and ridiculous that I have to make jokes. But in the beginning, Maya didn't make any statements. Like, he was keeping hush hush. People reached out to him to get his side of the story back when he only had 100 children, but he didn't want to say anything. But eventually this year he did. And I'm sure nobody is surprised to know he does not agree that he has a problem. Basically, he said that he has a right to freely disseminate his sperm as he pleases. And no, he's not being selfish. No. He's doing this for all the poor prospective parents out there who want kids but can't have them. He's a hero, guys. He's actually a hero. And because no other man exists on this earth, he has to be the one to do it. He's like, it's a dirty job, but I just love doing it. I cannot. I have to take this seriously. I may be biased here, but at no point did I find any information to suggest that sperm was in short supply. So why does it have to be him doing all of this donations? Like I said, there are other men who exist in this world. This is not the Ark, and he is not Noah. He does not have this grand mission. Nobody sent him this. Nobody said to him, babe, we're running out of kids. You know, in a couple of years, the world's gonna end because there's no kids. So go forth and repopulate. Like, nobody said that. Nobody said that to him. Anyways, the court made a decision back in April, which is why I'm really glad that I didn't talk about this back in March when I wanted to. They made a decision towards the end of April. The main issue for them was that there were two conflicting human rights involved. His human rights and that of the parents and their donor children. So I'm just going to read what the court decided because, I'm just going to read it. So the court basically ruled that Maya deliberately misinformed parents of the donor conceived children about the number of children he had already fathered as a donor and was planning to father in the future. So he lied to them and he said, oh, I only have 1 or 2. I don't know if that's the exact number, but he lied. He misrepresented how many children he had. And he also misrepresented how many he was planning on having. He knew this information, the court said he knew this information was decisive for their choice to choose his sperm, and he lied. They also found the negative psychological and psychosocial consequences for the offspring were significant and could include difficulty maintaining a relationship with so many half-siblings, identity problems, and the fear of an increased risk of incest and inbreeding as well. In light of the substantial interests of the donor-conceived children and their parents, the judge considered the infringement of the donor's rights to be limited and substantially outweighed. So basically, the rights of the kids and the donor families far outweigh the rights of this fucking creepy person who will not stop donating his sperm. The judge ordered Maya to cease all donation activity and write to all institutions storing his sperm asking for the specimens to be destroyed, with the exception of specimens held for parents for the purpose of a genetically connected sibling to a current child. So basically what the lawsuit was asking for, they got. So they won the lawsuit. And Maya could also be subject to €100,000 fine per infraction. And this is all wonderful and great and all of that. But if he's responsible, and this is just me talking now, like if he's responsible for making sure that these sperm banks destroy his specimen, are we sure that he's actually going to do it? And it wasn't very clear whether or not the sperm, it wasn't clear whether the court had a way to enforce and to ensure that he was going to comply with their judgment. That wasn't clear from I'll link the legal publication that I got this information from, and it wasn't really that clear. So hopefully they have a way of actually following up with this, because I'm not convinced that he's going to do it. He's already proven that he's fine with flouting the law and deceiving people to get what he wants. I feel like the government should step in and order his sperm to be destroyed, or only used in the ways that they outline. Like the government should go to these banks and say, hey, like anybody who has this guy's shit, like throw it out the window. Me, I would even go as far as basically giving him a vasectomy. Like, I'm not even kidding. I would just castrate him. You know what? I've heard enough. I've heard enough. He does not need rights. Like, just get rid of everything. Like, it's just ridiculous. Because I just know that he's going to keep doing this. He's not going to stop. So because the thing is, he's already broken the law by going to all these different sperm banks. And this was years ago. So I don't see him complying with a small little court judgment and a court order. But anyways, if you think that's bad, it's about to get a whole lot worse. And let's see how far I'm at. 57 minutes. Okay, great. Okay, there are men out there who travel around the world with the express mission to impregnate and inseminate women everywhere they go. This is where the bootleg in the title comes in, because one of the titles that I had was the Bootleg Baby Batter Brigade, which kind of is funny, you know, alliterative, and also it beats the censors because I'm not talking outright about sperm. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep that title. Anyways, that's where the bootleg in the title comes in, because this is a fucking bootleg operation if I've ever seen one. There's a 36-year-old Australian man by the name of Adam Hooper who fathered approximately 20 children via sperm donation. So far, he has children in Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, and he also wanted to expand his reach to New Zealand. According to Vice, Hooper was planning on spending 2 months in the land of the Kiwis, and he dubbed this little adventure, if that's what you want to call it, Lord of the Donors, a journey to Middle Earth. He planned on travelling in a motorhome for a string of more than 50 tour dates across the country, with the focus of spreading awareness, spreading his sperm, talking to the media, and potentially recruiting new donors. Now you're thinking, new donors? Marissa, what is he talking about? Hooper founded an organization aimed at recruiting donors and connecting them with potential recipients. But it's completely unregulated, so it's really not clear what kind of checks and balances are in place for his donors. The more I think about it, the only difference between these guys and the doctors who replace the donor sperm with their own without telling their patients is that these bootleg donors are a bit more forthcoming with the fact that they're just like trying to give their sperm away to everybody who wants it, I guess. But they're both unethical. So Kyle Gordy Yet another wayward individual who has dedicated his life to sowing his wild oats. At 31, he has allegedly fathered 70 children, including some that are like on the way, they're still baking in the oven. And he's even been giving away his degenerate baby batter for free. sometimes I'm funny. I'm funny. But yeah, he's been giving away his degenerate baby batter for free. According to Kyle, he's donated his sperm to over 150 families around the world, and he's even met some of the children he fathered. Back in February of this year, he had an interview with Wales Online, and I'll link the interview as well, but I'll just like read some of what he said. So he says, I enjoy helping people and seeing the kids grow up and seeing them happy. It's probably the best thing about it. 61 have been born and 9 are on the way, but there may be more that might be pregnant, so there's around 70. It's completely free. I just volunteer. Charity work, I guess you could say. I don't have a number that I'd like to get to. I've read this before. Anyway, let me just keep reading and then I'll share my thoughts. So he says it's completely free. I just volunteer. Charity work, I guess you could say. I don't have a number that I'd like to get to. Just whoever needs help. When people don't need my help anymore, I'll stop. But sometimes I travel, so it hinders me from donating as much. Oh, poor thing. We certainly would not want him to travel more. The New Zealand government was not on board with this bullshit, though, so Kyle was basically yeeted out of New Zealand. So basically he was in Fiji, and he was making his way to New Zealand to join Adam Hooper's Insemination World Tour. And I guess Kyle was doing a lot of talking, and the Kiwi government said, fuck out of here with that shit, because we do not want to we want no parts of this, basically. And he was deported back to the US. Like, Fiji didn't even want him. When the Kiwis said piss off, Fiji was like, no, you gotta go. You gotta go. Because imagine the size of Fiji. Like, they do not want their women falling prey to this guy. So in the Vice article about Adam Hooper, he talks about how Kyle was stupid because he didn't lie to the New Zealand government about why he was there. But anyways, one of the things that I found worrying about Adam Hooper is that he doesn't keep track of how many kids he has. So with these other guys, they, whether meticulously or not, they have a general idea of how many children they have around the world. Adam Hooper does not. He says he's not sure, and that is probably around 20. Due to the risks I mentioned earlier, you'd think he'd want to keep track of them. If it's for the purpose of being able, like, even if it's for the purpose of being able to make contact with their half siblings, he's the person, like, he's basically the nucleus in this. So he's the one with all the information. So if he's not keeping records and this isn't done through official means, it's possible that none of his siblings know that he has other children out there, which is so scary. And the other really fucked up thing, so you know how I said earlier, I doubt he vets these people that he recruits into his organization? I think I said that, but I doubt he vets them. I don't know why, but this next bit almost knocked me off my chair, because the guy said he vets his recruits through gut instinct. Gut instinct. Gut instinct. He says he has a good sense of these things, but don't worry, guys. He also checks their Facebook pages. And as we know, No one has ever lied or misrepresented themselves on Facebook or any other social media platform for that matter. Like it's never happened in the history of the world. Along with the issues I mentioned previously, another major issue is that this industry of cowboy sperm donors isn't regulated because it's so new, and much like with things like crypto, the law is so slow to catch up with what people are doing. And so, like, people just get away with doing all sorts of wayward, unethical things. Hooper and Gordy may not be worried about the safety risks for women who are seeking these donations, but the Australian government is. According to The Age, which is an Aussie newspaper, a woman in Victoria reported a sexual assault from a man who offered to make an informal donation. So you know how I said previously some of them offer home insemination? Basically, that's what he means. And when he says informal, he means through like natural means. And while Hooper claims that his organization has helped thousands of people conceive over 7 years and that they haven't had any rapes or sexual assaults reported in that time, it's important to note that he is the founder and the spokesperson for this organization. So he has a massive incentive to present this organization and what they're doing in the most positive light possible. Apparently, Australia this knocked me because remember earlier I was like, as far as I know, there isn't like a sperm shortage. Apparently, Australia has such a shortage, and because of this, the government are investing in public fertility clinics and public fertility services to help more families conceive. And I guess it's also a way of counteracting these people and their influence. So that's basically just like a look at some of these disgusting, deplorable men. And by the way, again, I'm just going to state this, and I know it's very like superficial or whatever, but none of these men are attractive. I know that looks are also very subjective. They're very mediocre. They all look like basement dwellers, and I just don't understand why they are the ones who feel the need to do this and not Jason Momoa. That's all. But let's wrap this all up, shall we? Like I said in the beginning, sperm donation is a great way for people with fertility issues to have children. I don't see that as a bad thing at all. But as we've seen in these cases, there's a lot of villains out there taking advantage of the natural desire to be parents, and they're using it to scratch some kind of sick itch that they have. And there's so many more of them. There are entire Facebook groups of men like this. I can't imagine how some of these donor children must feel, as well as the parents who choose this route because it's just something that they want. But obviously, they didn't have all the information they needed to make the right decision for themselves and their children. Like Maya's ruling said, he deliberately lied in order to convince people to use his deposits. And if they knew, I doubt he'd have as many kids as he has now. It's also really frustrating that the court cannot do more to protect these children without infringing on his human rights, because I don't think these guys, any of them are going to stop. I've spoken to people who have found out that, like in the past, I've spoken to people who have found out that they had secret siblings, and some of them have been distressed by that alone. Like finding out that like one of you had a long lost sibling that you didn't know about, that's distressing enough. If you have, quote unquote, a traditional family setup. And by that alone, that's really bad. But imagine you have hundreds of siblings out there. Every time you meet someone, you must be wondering if you're related to them. The other thing to note is if someone gets sperm through a clinic, They do so under the assumption that the donors are tested for things like STIs and other genetic conditions that can affect the health of the potential child. And there are other hoops that a donor and a recipient have to jump through as part of this process. These hoops are there to safeguard everybody involved. So even in the case of the doctor, the clinic is liable for what the doctor's done. He's liable. So many people are now liable because I was going to say he fucked up, but he didn't. He did something really disgusting and unethical and reprehensible. But these hoops are in place to safeguard everybody in that process. Someone like Adam Hooper, he goes off of his gut instinct. He's not, if he looks at someone and is like, oh, that looks like a trustworthy guy, then that's all that is needed. He doesn't do a background check. Looking at someone's Facebook profile is not a background check. Some of these dudes are just going around giving their sperm away like it's Mardi Gras beads, and some of them are so ignorant about it that I doubt they're doing genetic or any other kind of testing as part of this process. And even if they have done genetic testing, the arrogance that some of them give me, like Jonathan Meyer, the arrogance that he gives me, I doubt that he would even disclose if he had any genetic issues. Also, if they, like in a fertility clinic, if you fuck up in that process, you have more legal recourse than if it's just some unemployed wanker musician off the street who just thinks it's fun to impregnate women on every woman on the planet. You can sue them for all they're worth. This guy is not worth much of anything. He eats raw kidneys for fun. And at the end of the day, I feel like these guys are arrogant and this whole thing is just a power trip for them. The same with Nick Cannon. Like the whole time that I was looking into this, I'm like, Nick Cannon is kind of doing the same exact thing, except he's brainwashing these women into thinking that he's going to be a present father, which I guess these guys don't promise to be present. But Nick Cannon is kind of this, they're two sides of the same coin, basically. There's no justification for having that many children. And even if you're in Australia where there's a limited sperm supply, there are other men in the world. Like, why does it have to be you? That's it. Those are my thoughts on this disgusting thing. What's your opinion on it? Let me stop sharing all my opinions all the time. It just, I cannot not underestimate, I don't know what the right word is, but there's so many of these men. There are so many Facebook groups and all of these things, and they're just like, a lot of them come across as predators. It's crazy. Anyways, enough of that. Let's talk about some good news, shall we? In today's good news, they found microbes that can eat plastic at a low temperature in the Alps. Apparently, scientists have already discovered bacteria that can eat or destroy plastic polymers. But the problem is that the process requires extremely high temperatures for it to work, which doesn't make it carbon neutral. So there's no point in doing that. So this is really good news because I guess it's easier to cool things than it is to heat them. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. The Swiss Federal Institute found the most effective performers were two fungi that are hard to pronounce, so I won't even try. But they're new and they worked at just 15 degrees Celsius, which is around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And I had to Google that because I don't know Fahrenheit. The bacteria in question, apparently there's about 14 of them in total, and I literally just spilled squash on my leg. This is wonderful. But yeah, there's about 15 of them in total. and they can destroy specific types of biodegradable plastic, including the types that they use for artificial textiles. Like, I believe polyester is artificial and like made from plastic and other stuff. And the type that they use in biomedical supplies. So like the dissolvable stitches that you use when you get an operation or something. The casing for an inhaler. I have asthma, so I have a few of those. Those are the kind of things that these bacteria are able to... No, those are the kinds of things that these bacteria are able to biodegrade further. One of the scientists involved in the research, his name is Dr. Beat Frey, which is actually a really good EDM name, I feel like. He said, the next big challenge will be to identify the plastic degrading enzymes produced by the microbial strains and to optimize the process to obtain a large amount of protein. In addition, further modification of the enzymes might be needed to optimize properties such as protein stability. Again, I'm not a scientist, but basically what they're trying to do is to kind of extract the proteins that they need from these bacteria and then kind of replicate it on a larger scale so that they can actually apply this to real world cases. Maybe they can melt the Great Atlantic garbage patch? I don't know where the garbage patch is, but you know the really big one that's floating somewhere in an ocean? I'll leave a link to the full article. But that's really nice to see that they are prioritizing getting rid of plastics. And these bioorganisms, by the way, the fungi, they eat microplastics. So that's great because that shit scares me. I'm terrified of microplastics. I love fish, but I'm terrified that every time I eat fish, I'm eating microplastics. But I still eat fish. I had fish yesterday, but it's still scary. Anyways, so that's nice, and good for them. Good for the nerds out there. They're really winning. Anyways, that's it for this week. If you're still with me, thank you for listening. This one was very strange to get through. I feel like my energy was all over the place, so I sincerely apologize if it was too much. I think I need to go and have a very hot holy water bath after all of that talk of jizz. I feel like that one Family Guy meme now, you know, the meme with Stewie in the straitjacket and his eyes twitching and his hair's a mess, like he's insane. That's how I feel right now, even though it probably doesn't sound like it because I'm very good at hiding things. Anyways, don't forget to rate and review the show on the platform that you're listening on. Follow me, and don't forget to drink water, go outside, and most importantly, crush the enemy.